Hello, today we are going to begin chapters 11 through 15, and we're going to go very quickly through these chapters as we have a lot still to cover before we get to the Civil War. So we're going to just pretty much fly through about 40 years of history in a week. So we're gonna move pretty quickly. So today we are going to talk mostly about something called the Industrial Revolution. And the Industrial Revolution, we're talking about industry, so factories and things of that nature. And the Industrial Revolution started in Britain in the mid 1700s. And they started to be able to build things and get machines to be able to have things go a lot faster. And they were able to make more products at a better time. So, therefore, the industries, the factories, like Hershey and Marathon and stuff that we have here in town, were able to make things at a faster rate and get more money. So this was a time where machines were being invented and changes were being made in the way that goods were produced. What it did is it sped up production time. So instead of taking 2 weeks to make something, we can do it in 2 hours and make much more of them and then sell a lot more of them and make a lot more money. Factories that we think of aren't the only thing. There's also textile mills, and whenever you see the word textile, we're talking about like clothing, things that come from cotton and being able to make it into shirts and all that. And I have no clue how that works, but there are people a lot smarter than I am that do know how it works, and they're able to do that and make that happen. And those were being made up, invented, thought of at this time as well. So we were able to produce clothing faster than just people having to make their own clothing. Now, as you might imagine, the conditions in the factories were not safe. It was very, very dangerous. The people would work long hours because the machines are always breaking down. So they're trying to fix the machines, um, and it would be very common to work 12 hours a day and 6 days a week. And with it being dangerous, it would not be uncommon to, well, fix the machine. You have to stick your fingers in there to try to get something out. And oh, the machine works, but the fingers no longer do because they're part of the machine. Yeah, good thought there. But that kind of thing happened often. It's dangerous work. We didn't have electricity, so a lot of it's done by crank and that kind of thing. So it was dangerous, and there were a lot of people that would get seriously hurt or even killed in these factories. Children were expected to work in them when they could, when things were needed to be made. And as young as 7 years old would actually get paid for some of their work. Now, they weren't sticking their hands in the machines, obviously, but the children were doing a lot of work on their own to help their parents and make a little bit of extra money and help make whatever is being produced in the factory. So the fact that we had these factories and these mills, it led to the population moving. When there weren't a lot of these, people all lived in rural areas, lived out in the country, had their farms, had those kind of things. Well, the factories were located in towns and city centers to where people would need to migrate or go live in the city. And this is something that is called urbanization. Whenever you hear the word urban, like an urban area, we're talking about a city, a non-rural area, a place where there's larger population. So whenever we have urbanization, that means people move from countries to urban areas. For example, in the year 1800, so whenever we had the election of 1800, only 6% of the population lived in cities. That means 94 lived out in the country. Within 50 years, that moved all the way up to 15%. So that's a pretty big growth. And in case you're wondering what it is today, now it's around 80% live in urban areas. We do not. Okay, yes, a lot of us may live in Robinson in a town, but it is not an urban area. It's not big classified as an urban area because we're not big enough. We don't have enough stuff to be considered urban. So that was going on the East Coast. That was going on in cities, New York, Philadelphia, Boston, that whole region up in there, they were starting to get more and more factories, more and more people living in those areas, and they were starting to make a little bit more money. Because remember, the South was making the money before with all the farming and the slaves and all that. So now the North is starting to make some of their own money and um, doing some good things with that. Westward movement. Um, the people of the United States kept moving west. We were pretty much ignoring the natives. Once again, see a trend going on here. And we would just start moving further and further west as we would go. And as the 1800s went on, we kept going west. And we started making trails, which would make it easier for people to move out there. And a couple of the more famous trails was the Great Wagon Road and the Wilderness Trails, or the Wilderness Road rather. And some people would even get on flatboats and sail down rivers to these new locations. And a flatboat is just like this big long boat with flat back of it to where you could put a bunch of stuff on and sail it to wherever you needed to go. So we were using our river system to help us get into different places, and we were expanding further and further west. And this led to more states. Okay, the more further west we go, the more states that we have developed. And by 1819, we were up to 21 states, including the state of Illinois, which became a state in 1818. And when we do the Constitution here very soon, we'll talk a little bit more about Illinois becoming a state. So we are growing, and we are growing quickly. Another thing that was invented at this time, which helped us grow even more, were the steam engines. Okay, being able to move by the use of steam. In other words, steamboats or choo-choo trains. We were able to use these trains and these steamboats to get from place to place even faster than we had before. And this was very beneficial because now it's saving time, more people can move out west, all kinds of things can happen. Then we had the great idea of building a canal or start building canals. And canals are man-made waterways. Okay, in other words, people dig ditches enough to where we could actually put boats out on the ditches. So we're not talking teeny tiny ones, we're talking big ones. One of the most famous canals is the Panama Canal. If you see a map of Panama, you will notice that it's a real little area where there is a canal built, so people don't have to sail all the way around Central and South America to get from one ocean to the other. They just have the Panama Canal and they sail right through it. In the United States, the biggest canal, one that was made at this time, is the Erie Canal. The Erie Canal, which is located on one of the Great Lakes, Lake Erie, and over into Pennsylvania. It took up to 8 years to build the Erie Canal. But get this, it is 363 miles long. 363 miles long. That is almost from here to Chicago and back. Okay, it's pretty close to that distance. So it's a very, very big thing. That's how long it is. It is 40 feet wide and 4 feet deep. Okay, now if you want to get an idea of what 40 feet wide would look like, I would say from the front of my classroom or the front of my neighboring classroom to almost my back divider would be 40 feet. Okay, maybe a little bit smaller than that, but pretty close. So they dug holes, trenches, ditches from pretty much the front of my classroom to the back of my classroom, 4 feet deep. Okay, so they're going 4 feet in the ground, all the way to Chicago, and then almost all the way back here. So we're talking a very, 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 very long canal, and a lot of work and a lot of digging and a lot of dirt and mud and all that fun stuff. But this allowed us to get to the Great Lakes easier from the East Coast. So they're building all these factories Now they could take their goods and they could send them to like Chicago and those areas better by using the system of the Great Lakes. So this was our notes on the Industrial Revolution. It's, like I said, not the most exciting notes in the world, but our next day in notes, we're going to talk about how Florida, Texas, and California became a state. And I think that's a little bit more interesting, and we will do that next.